Chapter 2. I reached my apartment house. It was one of the few true dumps that could be found within my zip code. The buildings on either side of mine were large and clean. They were pristine and fresh, as though they had been built the day before. Stuck between them was my home. The tiles on the roof were cracked, the paint was faded and worn. The security door, if it could be called that, was intact, save for the lock. It looked condemned, but the no vacancy sign on the front assured those who walked by that people did live there occasionally. I pushed the door open and walked into the courtyard. It was even worse on the inside. The pool water was black and bubbling. There were a couple of deck chairs and a small plastic table set out next to it. They were broken and filthy with rusty hinges and sharp edges. I breezed by to the unit furthest back, next to the laundry room. I shoved my key in and pushed the door open. I had grown accustomed to the smell, but occasionally it would sneak up on me. I felt it burn in my nose as I forced the door shut. I headed to my bedroom. The stink was less intense in there. I only had a mattress and a small black and white television, complete with wire hanger antenna. I threw my bag onto the floor and flopped onto my mattress. I cursed Ivar a bit for ruining my usual daily routine. I considered just going back later, after I was sure Ivar had gone to his cave or wherever he lived. I sat up and crawled over to the television. I switched it on, and after some fiddling with the antenna, I managed to get a clear signal. It was some news program. I thought of changing the channel, but I didn't want to deal with the antenna any longer, so I left it where it was. I leaned back and tried to absorb what was being said, but I couldn't get my head calm. Talking to Ivar had riled something up inside of me, and I didn't like it. Just as I was finally beginning to calm down, I heard a loud knock come from my front door. I thought. I still had the receipt for the money order I used to pay my rent with. I fished through a pile of papers and retrieved it. Mr. Ockmullen used to pull scams on me, claiming I missed my rent and eventually suckering me out of an extra payment, but I was ready. I stopped over to the door and pulled it open, but instead of my landlord, I saw Ivar standing before me. "What the hell are you doing here? How did you find me?" "I told you." "Right, insights." I thought I had made myself clear. "What you're selling, I'm not buying. Just let me have 15 minutes. I know you don't want to hear this, but you must," he pleaded. I thought for a moment. I figured if a guy were willing to stalk me for months and follow me home like Ivar did, he would be willing to do it again. "Fine, 15 minutes, I said, and stepped aside, allowing Ivar in. As he walked over the threshold, I could see his reaction to my home. He clasped his hand over his nose and looked around in disbelief. The carpet was black with filth. The furniture, what little could be found, was broken and in shambles. The kitchen was bare, and garbage was piled against the walls. "You live in this?" he asked. "It's just a place where I eat, shit, and sleep. It's not like a home or anything. Is there someplace I could sit?" "Given your reaction, you may just want to stand," I said, as I slid back into a large leather chair, the one good piece of furniture I had, which had been left by the previous tenant. "Very well," Ivar said. "So, tell me about my family," I said. Ivar stood before me, clearly feeling awkward and weird. He tried to remove his hand from his nose, but it was no use. The stench was too powerful for him. "Here," I said, and hurried into the kitchen. I came back with a can of air freshener. "It's not much, but it may help," I said as I resumed my seat. Ivar sprayed all around him and finally took his hand away from his face. "Better. Now, as I was trying to tell you, the Korba family exists under a curse. A powerful witch leveled the curse upon your great-great-great-great-grandfather, Jacob Korba. Morgan Sanguine was a powerful sorceress who had struck a bargain with the devil himself. She was to marry Jacob, and in doing so, she would be able to deliver Earth to the devil and turn it into a new level of hell. Jacob discovered her true intent and refused to marry her. Morgan was then condemned back to hell, where she would suffer for her failure. But before she was taken, she cursed Jacob and his family. a blood curse. From that day on, Jacob and his descendants were doomed to be hunted and victimized by what some refer to as the dark side. Demons and all sorts of malevolent creatures and forces were set upon the destruction of the Korba family. Ivar stopped for a moment and looked down at me. I tried to hold back a laugh. I couldn't believe how serious he was being about it. Witches? Deals with the devil? I was tempted to kick him out, but then I realized it might get even better. You don't believe me, he said. The smirk on my face must have been a dead giveaway. No, I do. I'm possessed. How could I not believe you? It's just you're really into all this, aren't you? I'm not finished. Oh, then please go on. For a long time, the Korba family ran from this curse, but it always found them. In the 18th century, Jericho Korba decided to stop running. He traveled the world learning the ancient art of demon hunting. He mastered every known form of combat, went out to face the threat to his family straight on. For the first time in centuries, the Korbas fought back. Jericho's methods carried on from generation to generation until the Korba family was one of the most renowned demon hunting families in history. Okay, nice fairy tale. Can we skip to the happily ever after now? Which brings us to you. Me. Yes. You are the first Korba to be possessed by a demon. This could be seen as an escalation in the war between demons and the Korbas. They have made you into your own worst enemy, Ivar said. I checked my watch. It's been 10 minutes. You have time for one more story, or a song, if you prefer, I said. Ivar looked at me with dead eyes. I'm sorry, he said, and headed toward the door. I see I'm just wasting your time and mine. You have no interest in learning about your heritage or who you really are. It's clear you're much happier mucking about like some sick pig in his sty, he said. I bolted up from my chair. Hey, I didn't ask you to come in with this. Growing up with this monster in me was a living hell, and by some miracle I managed to cobble together something of a life for myself. It's not the best, but I have it under control. The demon's been quiet for a few years now, and it's been cool. Now you show up looking to kick up all this dust all over again. I was fine not knowing any of this shit. You're right, I'm sorry. I won't bother you again, and thank you. For what? For the invaluable lesson you have taught me. What's that? Enlightenment doesn't always fall upon those who deserve it. Sometimes it's just wasted. Goodbye, he said, and walked out. The next few days passed easily. I went about my usual routine. I didn't see Ivar hanging around anymore, much to my relief. I was able to slip into my old ways seamlessly and banish away any memories of what he told me. I even had some good days. I managed to earn enough money by the end of the week to afford to get a real dinner. I'd have to skip the tip, but I didn't care. I hadn't eaten a decent meal in months. There was a fast food joint along the boulevard that was a step above the typical fried food crap. It was a nice little shop, clean and cool, with modern music playing over their speakers. I had eaten there once or twice before. It was good because for a small price I could get a lot of food. I determined I would save the money to get dinner on Friday night. It just felt like a Friday night thing to me, a little treat to ease the pain of the week away. As the sun got lower in the sky that Friday, my stomach began doing somersaults. It knew food was on the way, and I could barely keep from slobbering. My hands were shaking as I approached the store. I pulled the glass doors open and felt the cool air hit me. I could see the look on the cashier's face as I walked in. Her nose screwed up as though she got a whiff of some bad cheese. I sauntered up to the counter as confident as I could and placed my hands upon it. What do you want? She asked in a snotty tone. Look, honey, I got money today, okay? Fine, what'll it be? I'll have a number 2 meal, please, I said with a forced smile. The cashier looked down at her register and typed in my order. She looked back at me. That'll be $6.52. Fine, I said. I flipped my bag around and opened it up. I sifted through my crap and for my little nest egg. But I couldn't find it. Panic ripped through me and my stomach fell a bit. My heart began to pound. I searched faster, but it wasn't there. Relief came over me as I realized I put the money in the smaller front pocket. I zipped the bag closed and went on to the extra pocket. I pulled it open but found nothing but a hole in the cheap vinyl. My blood froze. "Sir?" "Hold on," I barked as I feverishly searched every inch of the pocket. My fingers stumbled on something. I plucked out a shiny quarter. "Here," I announced. The cashier examined the coin closely. "That's fine, sir. Your balance is now $6.27. Look, I had the money. I did. Do you have the money now?" "No, but," I began. "Next," the cashier said, and the kid behind me slid around me, and she began taking his order. I stepped back. I felt my head growing lighter. I looked at the floor. I saw a penny outside the door. I lunged for it. As I pocketed it, I saw another coin a few feet away. Soon I was halfway down the block, picking up fallen money along the path I came. I had found all the coins in the single. I was still missing the $5 bill. I saw a small child picking up a bill off the ground. My brain snapped all of a sudden, and I charged forward. "Stop!" I screamed as I flew forward and tackled the child. I saw the $5 land on the ground. I reached for it, but I felt hands grabbing at me. There was screaming and yelling all around me. I struggled against their pull to get closer to my treasure, but I saw the bill slipping away, and I then heard a police siren. I looked up, and 2 officers were coming upon me. They grabbed me and pushed me up against a nearby wall. I felt the cuffs slap on, and they shoved me into their cruiser. Once we got to the police station, the arresting officer led me inside to the booking office. It was a busy day. Cops were taking statements and fingerprints, and there was a large line of people waiting to be processed. I saw a small room off to the side, and I could see that was where they took mugshots. The officer took me to a desk in the back and sat me down. He came around me and slid behind the desk. He flipped on his computer and started typing. I looked around and felt a sinking feeling come over me. Most of the people they had in custody looked to have gotten the short end of the stick when it came to life. Most of them looked to be fresh out of all kinds of different rehab. One crack whore struck me as she had stringy blonde hair, pale skin, and was missing at least 4 of her front teeth. "Name," the cop ordered. I turned to face him, and I heard the jingle of my cuffs. "Jake Corba," I said. He typed it in, and a few long moments passed. He growled. "What?" "You're not in the system." "I've never been arrested before," I confessed. He looked over at me. "Honestly? That surprises me." "Yeah, me too." "So what happened?" "I know it looks bad, but it's really quite simple. I had been saving all week to get something decent to eat, but when it came time to pay for the food, I discovered I had a hole in my bag. I was retracing my steps to get the money back, and that kid was just then picking up the $5 bill. And that's when you dogpiled on her. I just snapped. I wasn't thinking. I was just so hungry. I haven't eaten real food in months. I didn't hurt her, did I? She's fine, but her mother is fit to be tied. You think she'll press charges? At least. I'd be amazed if she doesn't see her ass off." "What?" "No, I don't have anything." "Easy. I'll talk with her and see if I can sway her," he said. I heard some kind of excitement behind me. I looked over and saw the child's mother storming in. There he is," she shouted. She had sandy blonde hair and was wrapped in expensive-looking threads. I really noticed the large rock on her wedding finger. She came up and towered over me with a threatening glare. "I don't know what kind of man just attacks an innocent little girl right there on the street, but I will make sure you never see the light of day again." "Do you understand me?" she barked. The cop bolted up. "Ma'am, please. If you would please wait behind the desk, I'll come for you when I'm ready for your statement." "I'll give it to you now. This man attacked my precious daughter right before my eyes. He was high on crack or meth or whatever they call it." "It wasn't like that. I began, but before I could say another word, I felt her ice-cold hand slam across my face. "Ma'am," I said, "wait over there, unless you want to share a cell with Mr. Corba." "Oh, he has a name? Are you sure it's real?" "Please, ma'am, just let me do my job," he said in a stern tone. "Fine," she said indignantly, and turned on her heel and went back to where her daughter was waiting at the other side of the room. Sorry, the cop said as he sat back down. It's fine, I said. A scream broke out. I turned and some large behemoth in a leather vest was banging around like a madman. He was swiping away cops as fast as they could hit him. Everyone began screaming and running to get away from him, while the police all pulled out their guns and swarmed around the beast. I had seen him when we first came in. He looked like some kind of biker or something, big with a long red beard. He seemed docile at the time, but something had stirred him up. More uniforms came rushing in, yelling at him to calm down. One cop rushed him, but the brute grabbed him and tossed him aside. Apparently, he also managed to lift the cop's gun, because he held it out and sent everyone back. I saw the kid and mom close behind him, huddled in the corner. The biker turned, grabbed the little girl, and pressed the gun to her head. One more step and the girl loses her head, he said. He dragged her back as he distanced himself from the crowd of police. I was still in my chair, cuffed. He was making his way toward me. I wasn't sure if he had not seen me or just thought I was no threat. I saw the kid's mom's face. She may have been an ice-cold bitch to me, but seeing her kid held at gunpoint was tearing her up. I'm not sure why I cared, but I felt morally obligated to do something. Just as the crazed biker got within reach, I leapt up and threw my arms over his head and pulled the cuffs against his throat, hard. He flailed and the girl broke free. She streaked back to her mother just as the big dude bucked me off. I flew back and hit the wall hard. He still had the gun and was stomping toward me. He raised it up, but before he could squeeze off a shot, the cops were on him. 2 officers were firing tasers, while 3 others were beating him down with their nightsticks. Once they had him subdued, everything slowly shifted to normal. I sat back down as the cop returned. Good moves, he said approvingly. Thanks. Instinct, I guess. Officer, the mom said from behind. Yes? I wanted to thank Mr. Korba for saving Katie. No problem. I owed her. Still, it was very brave of you. Thank you. Sure. After I was processed, I was escorted to a holding cell. It was dark, and the floor was gray and cold. I could hear the coughs and whispers of the other inmates in the other cells. Mine was practically empty. Only 2 other guys were there. One was asleep on one of the benches, and the other was a crazy-looking freak with long, wild black hair. He sat in the corner with his arms wrapped around himself, as though he were trying to hold in all his crazy. The fluorescent lights above augmented the dingy pipes and chipped green paint on the walls. I found a spot far from both of my cellmates and waited. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for, but I waited. The long-haired guy kept staring at me with some kind of weird interest. Hours bled into each other. I began to think about my situation, and I was starting to think I wasn't in such a bad place. I had a roof over my head, and they had to feed us. I was sure it wasn't 4-star cuisine, but it was better than nothing. Finally, the cop who processed me returned. Korba? Yes. It's your lucky day. The mom's decided to drop the charges. What? She figures she owes you a good turn for saving her kid. I'll get the papers moving right away. Wait. What? I was hoping that I'd be here long enough to get fed at least, I said, feeling stupid for even uttering the thought. The cop looked at me thoughtfully. Well, we feed you guys at 8, usually. It'll take me until at least 8:30 to get the papers through. Thanks. Sure, he said, and headed out. I took my seat back, but was startled to find the long-haired freak right next to me. I didn't even hear him move. Korba? He asked. His voice was raspy and weird. His eyes were wide and crazed. I felt my skin growing cold just sitting next to him. Yes, Jake Korba. What an interesting name. What's yours? I asked. His eyes were wild as he looked upon me. It felt like he was appraising me or something. Sam Abaddon. They call me Sam. Nice to meet you, Sam. Likewise. Your name carries quite a history, he said. I turned back to him, and the cold in my blood intensified. You know about my family? Of course. I am what some would call a student of the black arts. I have spent the better part of my life studying magic and mysticism, and anyone in that world knows of the Korba family. Demon hunters. But you, I sense something more in you. You've got a power that's literally bubbling to the top. You are special. Very special. Thanks. I'm going to sit over there for a while, okay? I said and flung myself from my seat and found a quiet spot at the other end of the cell. Sam was close behind. Don't misunderstand me, my interest, please. It's just that when I find someone who could be such a powerful force, I feel it's my duty to help nurture that talent. I'm not looking for a teacher or anything, okay? I said as Sam grabbed my arm. The heat rose through me, and as quickly as that, Sam fell back. He looked up at me with amazement in his eyes. He smiled and leapt back up to me. A demon. You host a demon in your soul. Yes, I do. I've learned to control it, so just shut up about it. You don't understand. You have within you a power you can't begin to imagine. Trust me, I can. This is wonderful, Sam said. He began ogling me like some sort of prize or statue. I got up and walked to the middle of the cell. Look, man, I don't really care about the demon in me. I don't care about magic or whatever. I'm just trying to live my life. If it's all the same to you, I just want to wait for my dinner and get out of here. That's it. Has anyone talked to you about this? Some guy, freak like you. Ivar, I think. Ah, yes. Ivar. Of course you know him. Crazy knows crazy. Ivar and I have traveled in the same spheres once or twice, yes, but he and I are vastly different. He languishes in the past, wallows in useless history. I can show you a way to use the demon inside of you to make your life better now. Do you want food? Shelter? You can have it all. More, in fact. The key is within you, Jake. It's all within you, like a genie in a bottle. You just need to release it. If I could do that, I would have done it years ago. You can't do it, but I can. What? I can release the demon from you. Not only that, but I can help you use the demon's powers to make your life everything you've ever dreamed it could be. No more suffering and indignity. No more struggling to survive one day to the next. I can feel the pain coming through you even now. You've been down so long you can't even imagine a better world. But it can be, and I can help you, Sam said. His words were finding every vulnerability in my head and hitting them perfectly, but I still had my doubts. Prove it. What? You say you studied this stuff and you can do this for me? Prove it, I said. Sam stood up and paced around the cell. His crazy eyes glued to me. His look was almost accusing, as though I had pulled the curtain away only to expose the trembling, weak fool hiding behind his powerful boasts. He sprang forward and grabbed my arm. He dragged me to the floor and held my arm down upon it. Proof? You need proof of my power? He asked, his voice trembling. He held up one of his fingers to me, and I could see he had grown his nail out and filed it to a sharp point. With a sick grin on his mouth, he plunged his nail down, but he stabbed into his own hand. I looked at him, my concern growing. Here's your proof. I looked down and saw the wound he inflicted upon himself was deep, and blood was seeping out of him faster than I thought it would. His fingernail was covered in it, and he dripped a few drops on the cold concrete floor. He forced my hand over the red splotch and guided around in a slow circular motion. He began to mumble something under his breath. A chant of some sort, I thought. A flame erupted from the blood, and I felt Sam's eyes on me. He began laughing as he held his hand out over the fire, slowly waving his hand over it, and with every pass it grew larger and brighter. I sat back and watched as he teased the flame more, until finally he balled his fist up, and as he did, the fire died. He looked over to me, waiting for a reaction. I had dreamt so long of abandoning the demon, but after so many years I had given up. I had been waiting for so long to find someone who could save me once and for all. It didn't fill me with too much confidence that I finally found that person in a jail cell, but I wasn't going to be picky.